Thrive Radio. I'm your host, Amy Montgomery, entrepreneur and digital marketing agency owner. Today, my guest is Ben Madden. He's the principal of HR Action LLC. He brings nearly 20 years of HR experience across diverse industries. At the Ambit Group, he increased staff growth by 5 times and twice achieved best place to work recognition with extensive experience in talent acquisition, employee engagement, and compliance. Ben is here to share invaluable insights on navigating HR challenges and driving organizational success. Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you have a very impressive background in HR, spanning various industries and leading significant growth. Let's start with your journey. What inspired you to pursue a career in HR, and what has kept you passionate about this field over the years?
So I fell into HR. I had gone to college hoping to get into business and realized very quickly that, frankly, economics was not my thing. I had a passion for psychology and actually took a course on sort of introduction to HR while I was studying abroad, of all places. And then I was able to marry that passion of business with psychology when I learned more about HR and what it was doing for organizations. I was fortunate to intern for a family friend who turned into my boss for almost 6 years. And then the rest was sort of history. My passion has always been in trying to help people be at their best. I'm not your typical face of HR and have had my proverbial seat at the table for a long time. So I've been able to help businesses really translate their business goals into people processes. And that has been part of what has continued to drive my passion today and why partially I am in business for myself.
Love that. So with HR Action LLC, you offer ranges of services designed to help businesses grow and thrive. For small businesses, particularly those with up to 250 employees, compliance can be a daunting challenge. How do you guide these businesses to stay compliant without overwhelming them?
So the biggest thing is really investing in these resources early. It's hard for organizations to break that this is the way we've always done it type mindset if it's set in stone when they start. I always have tried to lay out current situations with employers, and you've got X number of employees. These are things you have to do right now to ensure that you're in compliance and to ensure that you are able to maintain what you need to do. And then the other stuff we'll address as you get to that next hurdle. So it's not here's a laundry list of laws and policies and regulations that you have to follow, and without that, you're in trouble type thing.
Yeah, I like that. So you also emphasize the importance of balancing compliance with creativity in environments where employees might want to have a little bit of fun. And how do you seal those guardrails and to ensure productivity while fostering fun and engagement in the workplace?
So guardrails is a great way to think about it. HR really is supposed to set the left and right bounds, and all that gray area in between truly is where that creativity comes in. Experimenting with what works is part of the fun. If things don't work, great, you learn something from it. The culture at one organization is not going to be the same compared to another organization, whether it's same industry, same everything else. HR and leaders in general need to understand the culture before driving into some of these types of things to help having an engaging workplace. Ping pong tables and the sort of startup lifestyle isn't going to work in an organization in a different type of industry. I spent a couple of years at a startup, and they loved having their summer Fridays where we had a corporate barbecue, and me and one other person were out there barbecuing every Friday. It's not going to work in an organization where there's time deadlines and crunches that need to be met. And trying to do those are going to be harmful for the organization.
Yeah, I like that. Small businesses often have non-existent or understaffed HR teams. At what point do you recommend a business start to invest in HR, and how can they effectively grow their HR departments to support their goals?
Immediately is the answer. But when companies make their first hire, there are rules and regulations you have to follow. HR really should be that next investment. And I'm not saying you need a full-time HR person for a while. Consult with HR folks, get a handbook, get those types of things in place. They're going to keep you out of trouble for the short term. I talked about earlier knowing those thresholds of when the next sort of big hurdle comes. Things like 20 employees in Cobra or 50 employees in FMLA. The more that you have some of those base layers in place, the more you've got somebody who you have on call for an employee has done X, Y, and Z, what do I do? Is going to help keep organizations able to move forward and not have the wholesale investment when they may not have the funds to do that.
So for businesses that might not need a full-time HR professional, how does fractional support work and what are the key benefits?
I love fractional work. Companies that are smaller and don't need somebody with 20 years experience full time can absolutely get by with a couple days a month, a couple days a week, a couple of hours a week to ensure that they're set up for success from a people perspective. I work with a couple clients now up to about 12 hours a week with several of them who really give them both the strategic and the tactical based on their size and need to help keep them out of trouble, give them guidance on what do we need to do, and looking at these are their growth and this is what we need to establish now so it works for when they are 50, 200 people, what is already in place and what they can do. And when the time comes, having them bring in sort of an HR generalist with still getting access to me in a sort of a fractional CHRO seat to help those organizations continue to thrive.
I love that. So you also have experience really working through mergers, acquisitions, and significant growth phases. How do you manage the confusion and distrust during these times and align people and practices and all the organizational outcomes? That's actually a huge undertaking.
It absolutely is. And when I went through it before I started my own business, and that was the impetus for that, we tried to be as honest and transparent as we could. People make up their own stories with a lack of information, and they're all going to vary wildly. What one employee thinks is the reason why the executive team is meeting on a near constant basis is going to be very different. No, you can't always share that the organization is in due diligence meetings and is going through this process to understand what's going on. But you can say to the staff that we're exploring options to look at the long-term success of the organization. You can try and give guidance and support to employees to minimize some of that fear that happens when there are rumors and fear mongering of what's going to happen. I learned a whole lot during the first acquisition that we went through in terms of what works and what doesn't, and how to best support organizations. And I saw it on the flip side when we were acquired, and I was running ostensibly point for our integration from the company that was acquired side. I thought we had things set up to run smoothly based on my experience. Turned out it wasn't, but we were able to really help our employees with some of the fear that comes with, am I going to have a job? They have redundant positions, what's going to happen? Because we had gone through it once and dealt with some of those questions and concerns, and really tried to build a playbook to make sure that we supported folks during what really is a very stressful time, both for leaders going through the M&A and the employees who are left in the dark.
Yeah. And I always want to say is that I've been through a number of those as well. Probably the worst one that I ever was a part of was AT&T Wireless. Back when first AT&T, I can't remember if it was like AT&T was, they had just purchased them when I started. And and it was just a lot of the uncertainty, I think, freaked people out the most.
Mhm.
Right. And we went from an economic kind of environment of money grew on trees and people were just spending money right and left to all of a sudden everything's cut back and all of this stuff. But to your point, I think that it's the fear that everyone, and then that starts rumors and people are trying to figure out if they're going to keep their job or not. And if there's some transparency about that and what would happen if you don't have your job and what you should be thinking about, I think that that goes really far with a lot of people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we tried our best to stand for everything, and you can't. If you talk through a lot of the things that may happen, you at least have an idea of what and how the organization will react, what and how the employees may take bits of news and go from there.
So also employee engagement and organizational culture, these are hot topics for a thriving business. From your experience, what are some of the most effective strategies to keep employees engaged and investing in company success?
So employees are engaged when they feel welcomed in an organization. Inclusion, an ability to be their authentic self, paid fair wages, recognized for the work that they do, with an ability to learn and grow within an organization. uh, without these hallmarks, you're going to see turnover. You're going to see the ideas of quiet quitting and just frankly turnover in general. Organizations in turn need to help their employees be at their best. I've always talked about with benefits being the idea of making the things in life. My child's sick, can I get coverage? Will I be able to retire? And those types of things taken care of so employees can focus on. Beyond that is really ensuring that the employees are aligned with culture. And I'm not talking about the idea of using cultural fit as a way to fire people, but really understanding that what a culture is, and if an organization is hard charging and little time for questions, somebody who works in a different type of environment is not going to be a good fit in that organization. They're
Mhm.
not going to be able to bring their authentic self. They're not going to be able to bring the skill set that they do in an effective manner. And so the more that organizations can really provide a place to match what an employee is looking for, and in turn give them a chance to grow, is really a great way to ensure folks are staying engaged.
I love that. So with laws, compliance laws and regulations that are constantly evolving, what are some of the biggest compliance challenges and the businesses are facing, and how can they stay ahead of the curve?
So this may not be the biggest challenge, but certainly is the hottest topic right now in HR, especially is the continued integration of AI and its safe use within organizations. Most AI platforms that folks are going to be using are open sourced and can provide a whole lot of data to competitors, to virtually anybody if you're asking the right question. What HR and organizations need to do now is really put into place policies that again put that left and right guardrail in about what and how and when to use these tools. Not saying that people can't use these tools, because they're great tools. I use AI all the time. I speak to HR leaders about that AI is not coming for their job and how to best train them now. So the more that we can prepare organizations for understanding how to integrate AI more effectively, the better off they're going to be in what is changing at a incredibly rapid pace.
I love that. So you've also served on, I'm probably gonna butcher this, but it's a Nova SHRM board. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure, which is the Society of Human Resource Management.
Okay, so and then you've also received several certifications in HR and organizational development. So, how have these experiences and qualifications shaped your HR approach, and how do they benefit your clients?
HR can be a really lonely place. I was an HR department of one for many years, and so I didn't have someone in the organization to turn to for support, sympathy, even the questions about what are we supposed to do. So joining my local SHRM chapter really allowed me to build a network of folks who spoke the same language and build some of that camaraderie. I was fortunate to serve as the president of Nova SHRM twice and help shape what's important to our local members. We're 600 strong HR folks here in the Northern Virginia region. We've got a different perspective than in other places in the country. And so being able to drive and help shape that, A, gives me a different perspective in terms of what companies are looking for. And it also gives me a chance to also add some more voice to what is important. I may not always agree with the national SHRM stances, but I'm able to certainly help our members be able to understand and drive forward some of the big challenges that are facing HR. The certifications and things that I carry, frankly, for me, are more for those who are not in HR. They really show that I have at least some knowledge and expertise in terms of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The ones that truly, for me, make a difference to my clients is I've got a master's in organization development and able to look at the way organization problems are happening at a different level. And I also have access to, or am certified in Agile HR, which is a newer sort of idea of how to handle HR in a way that sort of aligns with the Agile technology methodologies of building teams and bringing them together for short periods of time and designing things that way. For me, my clients get access to a different sort of thought process than a lot of the HR folks.
Do you have any advice for small business owners who are just starting to build their HR practices, and what would be some of the first key steps that they should focus on?
Don't ignore HR. Small businesses where we've got an owner or somebody on the leadership team who's wearing six, seven hats, the first thing that happens is HR is going to get ignored. You got somebody who's wearing your CEO hat, your CHRO hat, your COO hat. in your CFO hat, which of those do you think is going to be the one that gets left behind most? The HR side is going to get lapped. And so when you realize you're overwhelmed, bring in the specialists to help the organization and look at fractional. There are literally massive industries of fractional of you name it, they can do it type things, from CEOs to product officers to HR and all of that. Find folks who can give you the expertise that you need to be successful without having to invest full time. And once you have that funding and ability, then you can look at what makes sense for investment long term.
Like that. So what do you think has been your truth that's gotten you this far in your journey?
For me, it's being as transparent as I can be. I have never liked to hide behind the company decided to do X, so this is what we're doing. I have always believed that if somebody is getting terminated for cause, they should see that it's coming. There couldn't be surprises for employees with a lot of things. Even looking at benefits, I have always been open and transparent in telling our company that we saw a 10-15% increase, and this is what the company can absorb. So people can understand the rationale behind decisions, and can understand why we're doing things to limit some of that storytell making and things that are going to cause more confusion.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. If you were able to give yourself one piece of advice when you first started out on your journey, what would it be?
Keep learning, keep growing, growing that you're continuing to do the work that you set out to do, and don't let folks steer you the wrong way.
Yeah,
I've learned some ups and downs in the HR industry, and now in my own. But sticking to your principles and those types of things are going to go a long way.
I love that. And if Ben, if there are individuals that are listening that would love to work with you, what's the best way to contact you?
The best way to find me is either through my website, hractionllc.com, or email directly at ben@hractionllc.com.
Perfect. And I'll put your links down below. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your expertise.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. If you want more information about this podcast and upcoming shows, you can visit acalltothrive.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful week.